In this video, I'm going to show you how to unfuck your brain and clean your life up so you can get rich quick and become a millionaire as fast as possible. I did this at 18 years old and became a millionaire 3 years later at 21. So let's get into it. I'm going to clean this mess up slightly. The first thing you need to understand is something called cognitive loading. So cognitive loading is a term used to describe how much load your cognition has to process. Now, I want you to start to think about your brain and your mind in the same way that we think about a computer. Now, a computer has RAM, and it basically has dedicated memory. And RAM, for those of you who don't know what RAM means, is it's basically the component of the computer that is dedicated to processing information that comes into the computer, verbatim, right? And so, for example, if you have 8 gigabytes of RAM in your computer, then you can run lots of different programs at the same time. But there will come a point where if you try and run too much through the computer, the RAM that you have won't be able to handle it, and the computer will start slowing down, it will start overheating. And so this is why if you have a laptop and you suddenly open 100 tabs, 300, and then like 5 games, and that your computer will just slow down. And the reason this happens is because the load of the computer is more than the computer can handle. And so your brain works in exactly the same way, and we call this cognitive loading. You need to imagine that there's a component of your brain, whilst perhaps it's not physical, that basically is responsible for processing load. And load is basically information. And so in your life, as you go through your existence, you're going to have sensory inputs and experiences, and you're going to basically take on a lot of information. And your brain is responsible for digesting that information. But just like a computer, if you give it too much load, things will start to get slow and things will start to slow down. And this is how you burn out. This is why you get tired. This is why you can't get out of bed in the morning and why you can't think properly. If you're trying to solve a problem in business or in life and you can't even just think and you can't even comprehend it, it's probably because you've got so much load. When you try and solve a problem in your life, if you've got high cognitive load, it's similar to running loads of programs on a PC that can't handle them and then trying to load another program. The PC just won't do it. It will shut down, it will overheat, and it won't work. And so what we need to learn to do is we need to learn to reduce your cognitive load, and this is an incredibly powerful thing that you can do as an entrepreneur. And so the first rule that I have for reducing cognitive load is finishing things. And this is an incredibly powerful way to think. So whenever I do anything, I have to finish it. Because think about this for a second. If this represents a task going from 0 to 1, 1 would be total completion, 0 is you haven't even started yet. What a lot of people do with their life is whenever they try and complete a task, and I'm talking like a task, I'm talking like watching a movie, watching a YouTube video, listening to a song, reading a book. What they usually do is they get a quarter of the way or halfway through it, and then they cut the task off. But your brain doesn't like this. Your brain likes things to be completed and finished. It likes the neat, tidy bucket that is completion. And so what happens is when you can only read 10 pages of a book or watch 3 minutes of a YouTube video or watch half of a movie, what happens is your brain starts stacking up all of these things that are unfinished, and it will remember them, and it will load them like this, and your brain craves completion. And so what this means is if you get halfway through a video series on Netflix and then you start another one and then get halfway through that one, now your brain's trying to it wants to know the ending. It needs to know the ending, because if it doesn't, it's going to put important cognitive power into trying to figure out what the ending will be. And you might not know this and you might not recognize this consciously, but unconsciously your mental RAM is dedicated to running programs that haven't yet been completed. And so one thing that you need to learn to do is finish things. So I have a rule in my life, for example, where I will always finish what I start. Whether it's a meal, whether it's a YouTube video, whether it's a movie, whether it's a book, I will not start something new until I finish the thing previously to it. Now, this isn't a binary rule that necessarily applies constantly. If I get 15 minutes into a movie and the movie just completely sucks, or if I start a YouTube video and then a minute in, it's complete clickbait and it's completely irrelevant, then I won't finish it. But a lot of the time, if I'm on YouTube and I'm watching YouTube videos, if I click on a video, I have a rule that it has to be finished. Because if it's not finished, then I'm adding to this load. And eventually your brain will clear the load. Like after 2 months of not watching a series or finishing it, your brain will just forget and it will just fade into the ether of your memory. But in the short term, every time you don't finish something, you're loading, you're stacking to the point where your brain basically just overheats. And so most people, think about yourself in the last week. How many podcast episodes did you start but not finish? How many books did you start but not finish? How many YouTube videos did you start but not finish? How many movies did you start but not finish? How many conversations did you start but not finish? How many games did you start but not finish? All of these things that you start and get to this point but don't see through to the end, your brain in the short term is being loaded to try and figure out how to finish those things or trying to figure out the answers if they were completed. And so this is one of the main reasons as to why your life is just a complete mess. It's because you haven't got enough RAM or processing power to allocate and dedicate to the things that matter because your brain's so concerned with all these things that you've left open. So imagine every time, the way to see this is it's like a loop. Every time you start something, you open a loop, and you need to learn to close the loop because here you open and here it's open, but you need to learn to close it. Every movie, every book, every series, like for example, I'll watch if I watch a Netflix series, which I don't do that often, I will not start another series until I finish the one I'm watching now, because I know that it's bad enough that my brain has to comprehend, one fictional narrative and start trying to problem solve for all these characters. If I give it another, now it just gets confused. The brain loves single-minded focus, and so you must learn to do this. Now, another way that you can reduce your cognitive load in addition to basically just finishing things is to avoid switching. Avoid switch. So switching is kind of what it says it is, but switching is basically when you're multitasking. Now, it's been scientifically proven that the brain physically, mentally cannot multitask, at least for men. I know women say they can do it, and God knows I'm never going to understand them, so maybe women can multitask, but I know that most of my audience is male, so dudes, boys, men, blokes, brothers, we can't do it. So there's no point in trying. Women are these majestical creatures that somehow know how to do it. My mum can do it, we can't, all right, and we just got to accept that. So switching is basically when you're trying, let's say that you've got 1, 2, and 3 tasks. Now, what your brain's going to try and do if you're doing 3 things at once. So let's say that you're trying to have a conversation whilst texting, whilst also finding out the directions. So let's say that you're driving, right? So you're driving the car, but you're also texting at the same time, and you're trying to figure out the direction that you're supposed to be going. The way that your brain works is it can only do one thing at a time. And so what it will do is, whilst it might be possible to simultaneously feel like you're doing all 3 of these things, what the brain is doing is it's rapidly switching between these tasks. And this is the exact same way that a computer operates with RAM, is it will run each program one little frame at a time. And so the reason that switching is bad is because it completely exhausts your brain. Because burnout is an interesting thing, because you'd think that just work is the thing that burns you out. But the thing that takes the energy is switching tasks. And so let's say that, you've got 3 tasks that you're working on simultaneously, conscious things that you're trying to problem solve or work on. What happens is each of these things are going to take energy, energy, and energy. But the problem is every time you have to switch between tasks or switch between different things, switching also takes energy. And if you're doing more than one thing at once, then every time you switch and every time your brain has to flick between these things, energy is being expended. And so it's very easy to get lots of work done with single-minded focus. If you're just doing one thing for a long, long time, it's not that exhausting. The exhausting thing comes from having to switch between these things. And so I invite you to do a little audit of what you're doing right now. So you're watching this video, but maybe you've got your phone on your desk, or maybe you've got notifications on, or maybe you've got the radio or the news on, or maybe you're also eating at the same time as watching this. All of these things that you do, you have to switch between. Because when you're looking down at your plate to cut into the food and put it in your mouth before you chew, you're switching. You're changing between things, and it gets incredibly exhausting. The problem is we don't notice this. And until when you stop switching, as soon as you stop switching and doing this multitasking thing, you realize how much energy you actually have. Because if you're watching this video and you look down to eat your food and then you come back up, Like your brains just had to switch. And whilst you were cutting the food and paying attention to that, you weren't really listening to what I was saying. And so then you have to go back to the video, and switching is terrible for your brain, and it's incredibly demanding. It costs a lot of calories, it costs a lot, it's very expensive in terms of, energy. And so another thing that, contributes to this cognitive loading problem, and another reason your mind is such a mess, is because it's so used to like chopping and changing, and it's extremely expensive. So you want to avoid doing it. Now, the exception to this is like listening to music. So like you can go, there are things that you can do that don't require conscious effort. Like for example, walking. I'm not saying that you can't go on the phone whilst you're walking, or listening to music, or chewing, or swallowing. Or breathing. If we had to switch between breathing, imagine how exhausting that would be. Every time you want to breathe, now you're conscious of your breathing. Sorry about that. So it gets pretty interesting. So what this means is that this kind of feeds on to the third point of cognitive loading, which is single-mindedness. So what you want to learn to do, in other words, is focus. Because when you can learn to just focus on one thing at a time, you become ruthlessly, incredibly efficient at that one thing that you're focused on. Like for example, if I'm playing chess with a friend, I'm not trying to engage them in conversation at the same time. If I'm eating my food, I'm just eating my food. I'm not watching like a movie or something at the same time. If I'm recording a YouTube video, I'm not, like my phone's on airplane mode. I'm not talking to anyone. I'm not thinking about anything else, So it's really important that you learn single-minded focus as this sort of, like it needs to become basically like a way of life. And so, for example, this should manifest everywhere. So like, when I'm on my laptop and I'm working on my laptop, I want one tab at a time. I want one window at a time. Like if I'm on a Zoom meeting and I'm taking calls, everything else on my laptop is closed except from Zoom, and all of my attention's on one thing. And this is how you get really, really good at stuff. And this is also how nothing gets past you. Because if I'm doing I recently did one-on-ones with my team. I manage about 25 people now. And the weekend that's just passed, I sat down with all of them on Zoom and did one-on-ones. And it's incredible how much you can learn about people and how much you can pick up on when the only thing you're focused on is them. And so don't switch, single-minded focus everywhere. Now the fourth thing to reducing your cognitive load, which is incredibly important, is task stickiness. This is a huge one. So a lot of people have these things called to-do lists, where you want to do something and you need to do something, and so what you do is you put it on a list. And a lot of people's to-do lists, they massively fill up and they get big and big and big. The problem is every time you become aware of a task and you don't do it, you now have this sort of open loop in your mind, where your part of your brain and part of your processing power is now dedicated to the completion of that task, and it's impossible for this to not be the case. And so if you're the kind of person that likes to rack up a massive to-do list before doing it, you're massively increasing your cognitive load. Now, I'm not saying that you should drop everything you have right now to go and do the immediate thing you need to do, but small little tasks that don't require any time at all should be done with immediate effect, provided they don't break the focus of the thing that you're working on. And so, for example, last week, I had to call Amex because we use an Amex card to run our ads, and I wanted to transfer some Amex points to my Emirates account so I could have points on my flights. And, this thing was like a task, and I had to call Amex and I had to, have them transfer the points or connect my account. And whenever you have a task that you need to do, what you can recognize is that there's a dedicated amount of time that task is going to take. In this case, it was going to take literally 3-4 minutes. Like I know that the Amex helpline, if you have a business card that spends a significant amount of money, which we do, you just call them and then bang. We spend like 200 grand a month on the card. So when you call, there's no queue. So all I had to do was call up, pass security, and then tell them my Emirates account number, and that was it. I'm in the kind of mind with this because I understand this cognitive loading. If I know I need to do that task, it will be done immediately. Now, a lot of the time when I'm working, I'm in a deep focus state where I'm working on one thing. But then I'll open Slack at lunch or whatever, or if I'm checking my messages, there'll be like a request or a task. And if I can get that task done in under 5 minutes, I'll almost always get it done as soon as it comes up, provided it doesn't come up when I'm in the middle of something deep and focused. But usually nothing comes up when you're in the middle of something deep and focused, because there's no information available to you. Like I'm recording this YouTube video now, there might be 3 messages on Slack asking me to find an invoice or something, but I'm not aware of that, which means that it hasn't entered my cognitive load. So the point I'm making here is you don't want tasks to stick to you. Now, if the task requires an elongated period of time, like it's going to take like 30 minutes or an hour, then you schedule it and you put it in your calendar, and you let your brain sort of almost close the loop by scheduling when you're going to do it. For example, I have what I call my Saturday productivity inventory, which is the most pretentious term possible for this. But what I do every Saturday is, as I go through the week, if there's a task that takes more than 5 minutes or 10 minutes, I put it on a list and it gets done on Saturday. Like an example of this could be if I have to go through and like review the data for Facebook ads for the week or something. But anything else that can be done in under 5 minutes, I just get done on the day immediately. Because what I don't want to do is start stacking up this massive to-do list, and then when I actually have to come and do something that is important, I cannot, because so much of my processing power and RAM has been dedicated to this stack. I can give you another example. Recently I was talking to someone who wanted to know what book to read and what book to focus on. And I was at dinner and they were asking like, what's the best book on philosophy? And I was like, okay, well, you should read Discourses by Epictetus. And so what they did is they pulled out their phone and they wrote on their to-do list, order, Epictetus's Discourses. And I was like, why did you do that? And they were like, oh, because I'll do it tomorrow. I was like, mate, like, do it now. Like, that's the kind of thing that you can open up Amazon, the app, and you can type the time in which it would take you to put it on a to-do list, it can be done. And so this is like, once you have this thing that you have to do, like order book, now it's like, until you've done that, you've opened a loop, which means that part of your cognition is dedicated to closing that loop. And it's this death by 1,000 cut stuff. Like, you want to be able to get things done and do them now and just get it out of the way. Like for example, if someone asks me for a testimonial video and I think they deserve one, done. Because it takes 60 seconds. Like, I see this where I've asked people for testimonials for our business before, and they're like, oh yeah, I'll do it tomorrow. I'm like, brother, you can pick up your camera, your phone right now, get it done in 30 seconds, send it, ship it, done. Like, you want to get into the habit of treating these little tasks like the game hot potato. When someone maybe you've never been thrown a hot potato before. I've never been thrown a hot potato before, unfortunately. But you know that game hot potato where like you're holding it and you throw it to the next person? That's how you want to treat small tasks. Is as soon as they come in and land in your peripheral, bang, like you bat them away. You're like some sort of like athlete with baseball bat guys. Where as soon as a task comes in, you smash it out of the park and it's gone and it's done. And you're just going ping, 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 ping. You're just trying to get rid of things. Like, if you know that you need to order someone a Christmas present and you know what to get them, then don't put it on a to-do list to say order Christmas present for person. Just go on Amazon and order it. Like, you want to get into the habit of just getting things done, because trust me, the second you become aware you need to do something and you don't, this thing just stacks, okay? You don't want to take it too extreme, because you still need to learn to focus, and you don't want your days to just be this ball of chaos where you're just doing, small little tasks. But it's pretty damn important. So the next thing that you can do, or the next thing that you need to become aware of as to why your life might be a mess and why things are so chaotic for you, is drama. Now, drama is incredibly, incredibly expensive in terms of our attentive ability, in terms of our cognition. Because what we're doing here with cleaning up your life is basically trying to fix your brain and fix your mind so that you can actually have energy and something left over to actually deal with the human condition and the suffering that you face. And so drama is it taxes your attention, it taxes your cognition, basically. And so drama is quite a seductive thing. And by seductive, I don't mean like Casanova, but it's seductive in the fact that it makes you feel good. Like when you're watching like the news or some YouTube drama, or like you're watching like a TV series that's a drama, you become very engaged in it. You become incredibly encapsulated by this thing. And what it does is it hooks you in and it keeps you coming back for more. And so what you want to learn to do is you want to learn to show absolutely no interest in, modern day drama. Like, for example, like recently we had the Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson fight. And to me, it makes no sense. Like, there's human beings on this planet that actually worry about that and think about that and talk about that. And it's like, what the hell? Like, you've only got so much time and energy in your life. Do you really want to dedicate it towards talking about two dudes fighting? Like, is that something that, like, unless that's your job and your job is to commentate or you're trying to sell tickets, like, why on earth do you care? And it's the same thing with politics and all this stuff. And so, drama, it comes up in a few different ways. One, we have the news. 2, we have politics. 3, we have YouTube. 4, we have social media. And then 5, we have friends / people. These are very dangerous things. So if you're watching the news, all you're doing is you're just consuming dramatic, emotionally charged material. And what you've got to understand is that, like, your brain can only deal with what you've given it. And so if you're constantly watching the news and you're constantly watching bad news about war and corruption and evil, then you're kind of encapsulated by this negative drama. And it's really, really hard, because becoming successful and building a successful career or a successful business or getting your life together is a very dramatic affair. It's not easy to do. And so if during your working hours, you're facing all the drama of trying to fix your life, and then you come home and you're consuming drama, then suddenly your entire life becomes dramatic, and that's impossible to deal with. You need to be able to, in your downtime, when you're not working and dealing with the drama of work, to be able to just disengage. Like, if you have a really complex life in your working life, and then you come home to more complexity and more chaos, then your brain doesn't get a break. And it's also way more exciting to watch the drama from these things than from the drama of your own life. And so if you're watching the news, cut it out. And yes, this also means Twitter. So if you're on Twitter and you're scrolling through Twitter, basically you're just scrolling through drama. And it makes it really, really bloody hard to focus and get any work done, because once again, it's the same thing. When there's drama, we open a loop. Like, if it's kind of like, Trump said this about Biden's due to speak about it at 4 p.m. today. Well, now part of your cognition and cognitive load is dedicated to this bloody loop that doesn't even move the needle for your life in any way, shape or form. There's nothing you can do about it. It's just like, and then you start talking about it and chaos. So get rid of the news. And then you might be like, oh, but then I don't know what's going on. And that's a good thing, because the problem with your life right now is you know about everything that's going on, and you don't need to know what's going on, because, in life we have the internal with ourselves, and then we have the external, which is the world. And the external is where all of the drama lies, with the politics and what's going on with the Mr. Beast scandal and, who's saying what about someone in the village. Like, everyone's attention is so focused heavily on the external that they have nothing left to give to the internal, which is basically themselves. And so they're so consumed with, all of this crap that's happening in their peripheral and in their environment around them, that they forget to give themselves and their life any attention. And so if that's you need to stop doing that. Now, the next thing that is incredibly dramatic is politics. And obviously we've just come out the back of a US election. Like, I don't know about you guys, but if I start following politics, especially close to an election time or a re-election time or an impeachment or something, I cannot work. Like, I get so drawn into this stuff that I can't work. And this is the same thing with identity politics as well. So, if you on your lunch break start scrolling through like LGBTQ arguments, then like it's dramatic. Like, it's this thing that's just like, so attention grabbing, and oh yeah, what is a woman? And yeah, you can have your political stances and whatever, that's fine. Like, I don't care. I'm not going to judge you for what you believe in or what you think is right or true, because I don't care, because my focus and my attention is on my work and my clients, not on defining pronouns or any of this stuff. And obviously, yes, I have opinions about these things that we're not going to get into, because I don't want to get into politics, because this is the thing, is it starts to seep into everything. Like, you see this with other YouTubers, and I've seen this a lot recently with people in this sort of self-improvement space and business YouTube space, is their political ideologies start to spill over into their content, and they start like getting all political and crap, and then like this drama thing, like it will engulf your life, and before you know it, you can destroy your business and personal brand. So stop looking at it. It doesn't matter which party gets it. It doesn't matter who wins the election, because there's nothing you can do about it. The main goal with politics is just get as rich as you can. So if you don't like the current political state of your country, you can move and can afford to move. Simple as that. The third thing is YouTube. Now, this is more of a personal problem for me because, I used to spend lots and lots of time watching YouTube. And the thing with YouTube is, on YouTube, we have characters, right? And a character is like someone, it's kind of like, the scape of YouTube is kind of like, if you watch drama channels or you're on this sort of thing, it's kind of like you watch a reality TV show. And so like KSI, Logan Paul, Mr. Beast, Rice Gum, Jake Paul, like these guys are characters. And the YouTube scene, this online sort of scene, it genuinely is like a unfolding reality TV show in real time. So you've got characters like Joe Rogan, you've got characters like Andrew Tate, you've got characters like Dana White, you've got characters like Elon Musk. And what happens is this can get real bloody dramatic. There's a bunch of stuff about like the Mr. Beast scandal recently, and everyone's talking about it and like, oh, what's Mr. Beast done? Like, you've got to realize that none of this matters to you. The only thing that matters to you is figuring out what you want and then figuring out how to get it. And watching a whole bunch of drama about someone who's done a recent crypto pump and dump is not going to in any way, shape or form move you towards your goal. It's going to do the opposite. These are things that sap your energy and sap your attention. So stop paying attention. Every time you get drawn in by a CoffeeZilla video or, Andrew Tate exposed, like, why do you care? Like, actually, like, let's think about this for a second here. Why do you care? It doesn't have any resemblance. It's just because you've become so familiar with the characters and you've got these weird parasocial relationships and you want to watch it unfold. Like, I get recommended these videos like in my recommended section, and I'm like, that's a trap. That's a drama trap. That's going to just suck me in and keep me there for like a day. And then I'm going to open this loop and wonder what happens next. And like, this is how you stay poor and fail. There's a quote from the Roman Empire that says, give them bread and games and they will never revolt. And this is basically a political strategy to keep the mass of people engaged in something other than political affairs. And what that means is that if you feed them and give them bread, which is obviously we have, and games, or it was the actual quote is bread and circus, but bread and games, basically it's drama. If you entertain them and if you keep them, entertained, then they're not going to worry about the moves that you're making politically and the military thing. Like, not that the government is out to get you, but the point I'm making is all of these are games. They're all these little dramatic games, and they suck you in and they suck you dry, which I shouldn't have said out loud now that I thought it sounds a bit weird. You know what I mean, okay? The next thing is social media. Get rid of it. If you're scrolling through Facebook, all you're going to do is see, 45-year-old women arguing about whether seed oils are good for you or not. Why do you care? You don't know why you care. It's just dramatic. You're just watching this little conflict unfold, and you want to see who wins and you want to see who loses, and you want to see who's making good points and who isn't. But more importantly, usually what you're trying to do with drama is just reconfirm what you already believe to be true, which is just stupid. Like if you're scrolling through like Instagram and then someone's been cancelled and you're like, oh, why have they been? Like, what the fuck? Why do we care about this stuff? It doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is your goal, your life, and fixing things up. So stop it. And then the last one, which is really, really huge, is your friends or people around you. So I have a general rule of thumb in my life, in my relationships, both romantic and personal, that if anyone dares to try and bring any drama into my immediate sensory experience, I cut them off. I'm not joking. Like, I had a friend a while ago who messaged me, like, because one of like a mutual friend of ours was like being mean to her and stuff, and I was like, I don't want to know about this, because before I know it, then I'm on like a 3-hour binge. Like, what's going on? Let me read the messages. It's like, yeah, this is just like a little tiff between two friends. Like, I don't need to get involved. And the more people that get involved in drama, the more dramatic it becomes, and the worse off everybody is. And so all of my friends and family and anyone that I date, like, if I'm dating a girl and she starts bringing up all this drama, like I had this a while ago, like a year ago, I was seeing this person and they kept on trying to create drama. They were trying to play this like game, and I was like, I'm not seeing you anymore. I'm not having it. And she was like, well, what do you mean? Like, I was only like trying to have some fun. And I was like, you know, like, I'll tell you the story. Maybe I shouldn't, but like, she was basically going to like some concert, and we were going to go on a date, and she was like, I'm going to a concert. And I was like, oh, she was like, I've got to go to a concert instead. And it was an act that she wanted to see for like a long, long time. It was Ed Sheeran. And I knew how much she wanted to see Ed Sheeran. So I was like, oh, have fun. Like, we'll reschedule the date. No stress. And then she messaged back saying like, oh yeah, like, by the way, like, the guy that's taking me, like, is a bit strange. And I was like, well, why have you told me that? And she was like, well, you know, I just wanted you to know. And I was like, I've been seeing you for like 3 months. Why are you telling me a guy's taking you to a concert? And she's like, oh no, he's just a friend. And I was like, done. And I literally didn't see her again, because it's drama. Like, people with no life love to create drama because they want to feel something and live something. And not that she didn't have a life. She was kind of a nice girl, but like, she had this little habit of creating this drama and stuff. And I've had friends in the past as well who have done the same thing. And I am fucking ruthless with this. Cut, gone, goodbye, get out of my life. Do not bring your bloody bullshit into my immediate sensory experience, because all I want to do is work and focus on the company. There are exceptions to this. If your parents break up and get divorced, it's a little bit dramatic, and you should probably pay attention and help them and care about that. If your sister or your brother is being bullied and it's dramatic, you should probably tend to that and take care of that. But a lot of exceptions can be made here. But, you know, for the most part, you want to cut dramatic people out of your life and, you know, get rid of them. I'll give you another example. I was on a date with a girl, and she the waiter brought out the wrong dessert. So she ordered this dessert, and then the waiter brought out like a cheesecake instead of like a chocolate mousse, or I can't remember what the hell it was. And she kicked off. She went off at this waiter, and I was like, drama, goodbye, not seeing you again. Because it's a pattern of behavior, and like, you know, it is just basically a call for attention, which is what drama is. And so we don't want it, we want to get rid of it. And so that's another thing you can do to basically fix this mess of your life. Like, you're so tangled up in everybody else's mess that you've forgot to untangle your own. So maybe you shouldn't do that. So I'm going to see what I got next on my phone here for you. So the next thing, number 3, is rules. So one thing that I've always tried to do in my life is clearly define my values and my principles and the rules that I want to live by. And so one example of one of these rules is for me to pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient. And this is actually a rule from Jordan Peterson's book, 12 Rules for Life. And what that basically means is you want to pursue what like is hard and meaningful, as opposed to what is immediately pleasurable. But what you want to learn to do is you want to learn to set some principles. And a principle is basically a guideline for behavior. So I have principles for my personal life, and I have principles for my business. And so everyone in my company is aware of these principles, and they know specifically what these principles are. Like, for example, the first principle we have in the company is client worship, and then product first. And then we have like high standards as a principle, moving fast as a principle, simplicity, radical transparency, like all these different guidelines for behavior. So when I'm running my business, if I'm talking to one of my employees and I can tell they're holding back important information, I'm like, this is not radical transparency. You're not following the rules, you know. Or for example, one of our principles is absolute ruthlessness, you know, stopping at nothing to win. And so if I'm reviewing like a sales call from one of our sales reps, which fortunately enough I don't do anymore, we have a sales manager who's fucking brilliant at that instead of me. But like, if I'm seeing like work that is not absolutely ruthless, then I can call it out because the rules have been set. And so this is why games make sense. Because imagine a game of football with no rules. It's kind of the same way as having a life with no principles. Everything is subject to chaos. And before you know it, you've got people bringing garden spades onto the football pitch and just taking out people's ankles just to win the game. And that's basically what happens. A little look into my childhood that you didn't need there, right? But, you know, this is what happens when you're not principled, is you want to set a clear, defined set of values and systems. Like, for example, one value that I have in my personal life is to always delay gratification. And what this means is I'm not interested in finding immediate sensory pleasure in the moment. I want to delay gratification and sacrifice today for a better tomorrow. Another one of my principles is single-minded focus, kind of what I talked about earlier. Another principle is no drama, right? And so you want to create and actually list the rules that you want to live by. So aside from the ones that I've already shared with you, the first one is growth. So if I'm doing something, like one of the rules I have for my behavior is, by doing this, do I in some way, shape or form grow and, develop? The next one is pain. So this is a kind of a weird one to explain, but like if I'm doing something that is painful, usually it means I'm doing the right thing. And so I try to seek and find pain wherever I possibly can. Whether that's sitting down and talking to a camera for 2 hours without a break, or sitting in the sauna for an extra 5 minutes, I'm always trying to build my pain tolerance and basically develop and grow. What another example I can give you here? Communication and love is another one. So like if I'm doing something, like particularly in my work, I want to make sure that I'm always working on something that I love. Another one would be value. Another one would be help. So like never being afraid to ask for help. Another one as well is trying to never have an ego. Another one would be stoicism. It takes a while to learn your values and to learn what matters to you. Another one would be speed. So I'm always trying to do things quickly. Another thing is calm and relaxing. I'm always trying to be loose and relaxed and calm whilst I'm, going about my endeavors and stuff like that. So like communication, for example, like I'm always going to be honest and open, and I always want to have as much open dialogue and communication with the people that I'm dealing with as much as I can. So yeah, just a few examples. The list goes on, but I won't get too personal. But you need to have rules because, life is a game, and a game must have rules. Otherwise, it's not a game. Like the rules create the game, if you know what I mean. So the fourth thing that we're going to talk about is routine. So if you don't have a routine, then your life is probably going to be a state of chaos. And by routine, I basically mean having like a set of actions and behaviors that are organized in a linear chain that recur, okay? And so your routine is basically what you do every day, and it revolves around time. And so, I can walk you through my routine and I'll walk you through how it works and why. So I wake up at 8 a.m. and then I basically usually get to work at 8:15 a.m. and then I usually break at 1300. This is verbatim, right? Lunch, and then like 13:30 is usually the gym, and then like 1500 is work, and then around what is this? Probably around 8 p.m. Food plus chill. And then usually by 2300, I'm asleep. So this is kind of my routine right now. So you need to be able to map out your routine. And when you map out your routine, you start with the end and the finish, because you need to figure out how much you're sleeping. So I sleep for anywhere between 8 to 9 hours a night, depending on what I'm working on. And then really my days are very simple. I do 3 things. I eat. There's 4 things I do. I eat, I work, I exercise, and I relax. And so my day, I don't have this crazy routine where I'm sitting in front of a infrared machine and then journaling and then meditating and then all this stuff. I used to do all of that and then logging my data and stuff. I don't. All I do is I wake up, I work for 4 or 5 hours, I break up, I go for lunch, I go to the gym and I work out. And then I come back and I work for another 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I work for 5, 6 hours and then I sleep. And so I work typically 10 to 12 hours a day. And if I'm not working, I'm either exercising, eating, or relaxing. And, this is Monday to Friday. On Saturday, I do a little bit less work and then I usually hang out with friends and stuff. And so what you want to do is you want to define your routine. And what I can actually show you here is my Google Calendar. And this will really help you sort of drill the point home, because what you can see, if I just pull this up here, is what my calendar looks like. So this actually is a little outdated. You can sort of see that there. So what I've done, if I just bring that in, what I've done is this recurs every single month, right? So I have the same thing that happens every single week and every single month. And this allows me to basically just organize my time and organize my mind. And the reason that you want to have a routine, the reason that you want to have sort of time consistency across the variables of your behavior is because of these bad boys, hormones. So your hormones are basically like things that are produced by your body that determine lots of things, lots of biological functions in your body. And so some examples of hormones are adrenaline, cortisol, testosterone, estrogen. Hopefully you don't have too much of that. Estrogen, testosterone, cortisol, melatonin. So there's lots of them, and I'm not smart enough to remember more than 5. So what happens is when you do the same thing every day at the same time, your body starts to develop a clock. And what that means is your body starts to become consistent. And so, for example, if you start going to bed at the same time every day and you start switching off the lights and trying to relax at the same time every day, then your body will start producing melatonin at the same time every day. And if you wake up at the same time every day to an alarm or whatever, then your body will know when to spike cortisol. And if your body knows that it's going to receive food at 1 p.m., then it will start producing ghrelin, which is basically a hunger hormone. And there's lecithin. There's some hormones that determine hunger. And what that means is you're going to get hungry at the same time every day. You're going to get tired at the same time every day. You're going to get energy at the same time every day. And your life suddenly becomes biologically consistent. You're going to go to the bathroom at the same time every day. You're going to, be able to focus at the same time every day. And this just basically, like, part of cleaning up mess is just finding consistency in behavior. And the only real way to find consistency in your behavior is to first find it in your body, because your behavior is a manifestation of your biological function. And so what I like to do is have a routine, because this allows me to cycle these things. So if my body knows, which it does, that we're going to be doing a pretty brutal workout at between 1 and 2 p.m. every day, then it knows when to spike the hormones associated with that, and it knows that it can expect loud music at this time. And this is an incredibly calming and relaxing thing, because it allows your central nervous system to start to recognize patterns and calm itself down and pick itself up when it needs to. I also have everything scheduled. So I get a 90-minute deep tissue sports massage every week, and that happens at exactly the same time on exactly the same day. If I decide to go out and drink or party with friends, it will happen at the same time on the same day, although that's very irregular. But if I have a cheat meal, which I haven't eaten carbs now for a year, but if I'm on your body just knows when to expect stuff. And when your body knows to expect stuff, it knows to react, and it just makes your life way less up and down and way less chaotic. And so what you want to do is you want to basically list out your ideal routine and what you want to do and when, and you want to be very granular with it. Everything, I have my routine scheduled down to when I shower and when I read, and when if I need to call people, when I call people, and I have meetings happening at the same time. There's this consistency is just it's a weapon, right? So let's see what I've got next on my notes of truth on my phone. So this is a big one. So probably should have started with this one, to be fair, but this is your goal. So the big question is what do you want? Because the way that you clean up all this mess and bring clarity is by defining something. So if you're a person who has lots of energy and lots of ambition, and you're conscientious insofar as that you want to be successful, you want to work and stuff, that energy needs to be channeled somewhere. Because if it's not being channeled into a goal, let's say that this here represents your goal, right? And then this is all of your energy, right? This is all of this ambitious potential and conscientious spirit that you've got that exists inside of you for whatever reason. If this needs to be channeled into the goal, because if it's not, then what's going to happen is this energy is going to register as anxiety. Because the problem with energy both, physically and psychologically, is that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be transferred or processed. And what that means is that if this energy that you've got, this sort of, thing inside of you that just wants to work and be successful, if it's not being put into something, you'll just feel anxious. Like I've had this before in my life when I was in my late teenage years where I didn't really know what I wanted. I hadn't defined a goal. And what that meant is all of my striving and all of this ambition didn't have a place to go. And so it just sat latent and it just kept bubbling up and I was just chaos. It was just complete chaos. And so if you're a person right now who has lots of anxiety for not really any reason, it might be because psychologically you're in this state of crisis where you've got so much like leftover potential that isn't being put into something, and it's registering as fear and terror because deep down hey, I need to do something with this because otherwise it's going to die, right? So you need to define what you want and you need to define a goal. And I'm not just talking about like 10K a month or a specific amount of money you want to make, because that's a good place to start. But I'm talking about getting really clear and really specific on what you want your life to look like. So I'm talking about like, what sort of partner do you want? Where do you want to live? What do you want to drive? What sort of business do you want to run? Who do you want to be? How do you want to talk? How do you want to dress? What you're looking to do is, and I know it's a bit cringy, is you're looking to create a vision board where you've got your life dialed in and you've almost predicted the future. And before you say, oh, it's just hippie shit, it works. I did it and it actually literally works. Because the thing is, if you don't know what you want and if you don't know where you're going, then how on earth can you possibly know what to do? Like the way that you figure out what to do and what to work on and what to do today is by mapping that against what you want. Because if you have no goal and you have no clue of what your vision is and where you want to go with your life, then how the hell can you know what to do? It would be like going into an airport with no ticket and just going up to some random check-in desk and just buying some random ticket and getting on a plane. You're going to end up somewhere completely random. And then you're going to land in like Ghana and be like, why the hell am I in Ghana? I don't want to be in Ghana. Shout out to Ghana. I've never been, probably never will go, but you need to know where you're headed, because if you don't, then, well, of course your life's a mess. Like the easiest way to clear this goal and to clear out this mess is just simply by defining what you want, because then everything else starts to make sense. And this is called optimization, where once you know what you want, this is basically, we can see this in a pretty simple way. So we have cause and we have effect. And so your goal is basically an effect, which is basically something that happens as a result of something else happening, right? And so once you know what you want, all you have to do is define what's going to cause it to happen and start doing that, and then you'll be successful. So if your goal is to be, let's say that your life is a mess insofar as that you don't know what you want physically, like in terms of your health. But then you define your goal as, I want to be 80 kilograms and 9% body fat. And that becomes your goal. And now suddenly you've cleaned up this little pocket of chaos in your life, and now you know what you want in that regard. Well, if you know you want to be, 80 kilos and 9% body fat, then what you can start to do is you can start to play around with the numbers. You can start to manipulate your calories and your macros and your workout schedule and your sleep and your recovery. And you can start to actually make educated, proper, projection-based decisions based on what you want. And so it's very important that we define this. And it's very important that not only we define it, but believe that it's possible. Because a lot of people say they want to make 10K a month, but then they don't actually believe that they can do it, and they don't actually believe that it's possible. And like a goal without the concept of possibility is nothing but a dream, and dreams don't change behavior, right? And that's a really important thing to remember. So when you're defining a goal, make it as tangible as you can and make it as vivid as you can, and then actually think you can do it. Because like if you're 27 years old and your goal is to be the greatest heavyweight boxer in the world, but you weigh 60 kilos right now, it's not possible. It's not possible. And even though it might be your goal and your dream, you need to be a little bit more realistic than that. Because like you're going to set that goal, and then you're not going to unconsciously, you're not going to bother to even try because you don't think it's possible, right? So pretty important that you have these realistic goals. Now, the sixth thing is really important, is your environment. Now, your environment is going to do one of two things. It's either going to support or it's going to destroy. So if this represents you, this represents your environment. So you are a system. And what that means is as a system, you have inputs and you have outputs. And all systems exist inside of an environment. And so as a human being with a goal, you know what you want and you know what you need to do to get what you want, but your environment is either going to support or destroy the facilitation of the accomplishment of your goal. And so, like, if you're trying to lose weight and your goal is to get to 80 kilograms, 9% body fat, but your environment is full of fast foods and people who are fat, then you're probably going to fail. Like, your environment is a better indicator of your behavior than anything else. So for example, I have been on the carnivore diet for nearly a year, like nine or 10 months now. And I've had a couple of like lapses here and there where like, I've been on holiday, a couple of cheat meals, but I can confidently say that 99% of my meals have been nothing but red meat. And that is a very, very difficult thing to do, but it's been quite easy for me. And the reason for it being quite easy is because I control my environment. So for example, I will not go to a restaurant, whether it's on a date or with family or with friends, I will not go to a restaurant that does not serve steaks. I will not buy food for my house that is not steaks. Like, we had Halloween recently, and so like my business partner and I, we're in this little we're on the Palms. So there's a bunch of kids and like family houses and stuff. So we bought loads of chocolates for the kids for trick or treating. Much to our absolute dismay, no one came trick or treating. We had like a pumpkin and everything. It was actually quite sad and tragic, to be honest. But no one came trick or treating, and so we're left over with this big bag of chocolates. And you better know that those chocolates got thrown in the bin. Like, I'm not keeping a bag of chocolates in my house because they're going to be in my environment. And my goal is to be healthy and consistent with my diet and my health and my training. And like, the second that something enters my environment that can fuck with that, I'll just kick it out and remove it. So there's lots of things that happen in your environment, like the people that you hang around and stuff like that. And like, one thing that I like to do, and one thing that I want to do, is read a lot. And I read usually in the afternoon and in the evening when I'm relaxing, I'll read for like an hour or two, usually like history books. And so my environment is littered with books because this way, like, I'm more likely to pick up a book and read it because it's just there. And so what you want to do is you want to do an audit of your environment, and you want to look at, basically everything. Your environment is an accumulation, an aggregate of every physical thing or digital thing that you come into contact with, that your senses come into contact with. So your kitchen, your bedroom, your hallway, your phone, your iPad, your laptop, like, you have your digital and you have your physical environment. And what you want to learn to do is become aware of what's in your environment and then audit what is in your environment, right? So for example, if you have like a Xbox in your bedroom, if your goal is to get to 10K a month and build a business, I can tell you right now that playing that thing is going to destroy your chances as opposed to support your chances. And so what you want to do is list everything that you come into contact with, and I mean everything down to a lampshade. You're going to find it's either neutral, which means it has no sway whatsoever, like a pillow, probably not going to have any impact on your ability to achieve 10K a month. But it's either going to be neutral, it's going to support or destroy. Your goal is to get rid of the things that will destroy your goal and, will destroy your ability to accomplish your goal, and implement things and put things into your environment that will support your goal. Things that are neutral, you can just basically leave. Now, the easiest way to do this is to move. Now, I understand that you might not have this luxury yet, but the fastest way to change your environment and therefore your life, because your life really is a product of your environment, is to move. So I've noticed this where, like, if I go back to my parents' house for Christmas, where I grew up, my family home, within a week, I've broken all of my good habits. I'm eating crisps, I'm staying up till 3 a.m, I'm playing on my old Xbox, because I've got so many triggers associated with that thing. To be fair, it's not as bad now. I'm a lot more rigid with it, and it doesn't get me as much now. But I see the impact of environment when I go home, because I'm suddenly the snack cupboard is there, and this is there, and then my games are there, and it's just and then before you know it, and then all your old friends in the pub's there, and then before you know it, you're the same person you were before. So it's very important that you move, when you can. So if you live with your parents or you live in an environment where you're doing all these bad behaviors, it's because you've got these triggers and you've got bad things. And so the biggest progress I've made is moving out or moving to a new location and resetting my environment. And in doing so, you can sort of reset your identity and your behaviors. And so this is another really important thing that you need to do in order to clean your life up, is clean your environment up. And this is the same thing with like you don't want mess in your environment. You want a nice, tidy, clean thing. Like if I show you, I won't bother with that, but like on my laptop, for example, like I never have any, like my desktop isn't chaotic, my room's always tidy, my bed's always made, my office is always clean, my fridge is immaculate. Like all of my environments, both digital and physical, are immaculate. There's no mess. I have no notifications that push to my phone. I have no chaos on my laptop. There's nothing there that could be considered mess. Everything is neat and put away and organized and tidy. And what that means is that my brain is as well. Because if your brain is constantly like looking at mess and trying to like, it's optimizing to clean things up. That could be a projection of my orderly brain. But it's very hard to clean up mess in your mind when your environment is a total mess. You know, how can you possibly clean up your life if you can't even make your bed? You know what I mean? So next thing on the list is a big one, which is diet. And this is very straightforward. This comes down to the idea of garbage in, garbage out. So I'm not telling you that you need to go on carnivore or keto. I'm not telling you what you should and shouldn't eat. I'm not here to, push some dietary ideological substructure of my persona onto your consciousness. I have no interest in doing that. But I can tell you that this thing is pretty bloody important. It's not about what you eat, it's about what you don't eat. The leverage in diet comes from removing things, not adding things. So people think that like they're in this, it's hilarious. Like people are in this really unhealthy place and they keep getting sick and they're tired. So they start taking supplements and they add something. It's like, no. If you want to improve your life and your diet, you don't add stuff, you remove things, right? And so I can tell you a story along this lines. So about a year ago, or 18 months ago, when I moved to Dubai, I would get routinely sick. My immunity was shot and basically in pieces. I would get, like my eye would get infected, my ear would get infected. If I got a cut anywhere on my body, it would get infected. I would get the flu, and I had a cold for like 6 months. Like my immune system was just completely ruined, and I was exhausted. I was tired constantly. I couldn't focus. I still got the work done, and I still did what I had to do, but I couldn't work out consistently. My sleep was ruined. Like my health was just in the gutter. It was just bad. So I had a doctor come out, and the same doctor treated me every time. So she patched me up. She's like, okay, you got a cut on your hand, antibiotics. You've got an ear infection, antibiotics. And it started getting to the point where I'd been on like 3 or 4 courses of antibiotics, quite strong antibiotics back to back. Then I had the flu. I also had tonsillitis. And then my doctor was like, right, we're going to fix this. We're going to find out what the hell is going on, because I'm sick of just giving you these antibiotics and you needing more. And so we did some blood tests, and she tested my immunity. Everything came back completely clear and completely fine, except from one metric, my immune metric, right? Obviously my immune metric, but like there was a metric inside of my immunity called immunoglobulin, which is a measure of, I think it's a hormone or something in the blood. I don't know this that well, but it's something in your blood that measures your immune response to food intolerances, right? And so my immunoglobulin, the average healthy human has an immunoglobulin level of about 100. So my doctor said. And my immunoglobulin level was 990. And what that meant is that my immune system was working 10 times harder to process food intolerances than the average healthy human. And the funny thing is the average healthy human isn't very healthy. So even that metric's probably quite skewed, right? So we did some more blood tests to find out what it was that I was eating that was causing these problems. So we did some bloods, and it turned out that like a ton of the foods I was eating my body didn't like them, was intolerant. Like I was eating, because I was trying to bulk, and I'd come off of this like ridiculous bulk as well, although you wouldn't tell. I was eating like a packet of almonds a day. I was eating like 6 eggs a day. I was drinking like milk. I was eating bread. And like I was intolerant to all of those things. So what my doctor did is she was like, right, you need to do an elimination diet and remove as much as you can. That's when I started looking into the carnivore diet. And I haven't been sick for 10 months. Like, it worked for me, right? I'm not saying it'll work for you, but this is the point that I learned with diet is like, they just don't eat crap. because you are a biological structure. You literally are what you eat. Because the only way that your cells can regenerate and that your body can grow is by the fuel and the energy that you give it. And if you give it bad energy and bad fuel, your body's going to turn out quite bad. Like, think about that for a second. Everything about your physical being and every calorie you've ever burned has come from what you've eaten. So, you know that phrase, you are what you eat? It is literally true. Because what your body does is you eat, you digest, you absorb nutrients, and then those nutrients are converted into resources that your body can use to grow. And so everything about you has come from what you've eaten. You are an aggregate of every meal you've ever had, right? And so if you're eating crap food and bad food, then your life is going to be crap. There's no other way. And the reason that this is important is because of something called your vagus nerve. I think it's the vagus nerve. Once again, I'm not biologically, I'm a little biologically inept when it comes to this stuff, but I can kind of help. And so the vagus nerve is basically a nerve ending that connects your gut to your brain. And so let me just draw this and sort of give you an example. So here's your brain in all of its glory, the brain stem. Okay. And then let's just say that this down here is your guts, right? And so what basically happens in your body, if my biological knowledge serves me, and I might be slightly wrong, but you can get the premise and apply it, right? Is your brain and your gut are connected by this sort of neurological central highway that is called the vagus nerve. And so what this means is that if there's something wrong with your gut, you're gonna basically have something wrong with your brain. And so this is why you get brain fog, and this is why you get anxiety, and this is why you get depression, and no one tells you this. So let me explain. So when you, this is your mouth, and then this is your stomach, and it feeds into here. If you eat crap food, and you eat bad stuff, and that enters, then what's gonna happen is your gut is going to leak. And this is called leaky gut syndrome, and it's literally what it says on the tin, which is where your stomach basically starts, you get little holes in your stomach, and the toxins that your body's trying to break down from all this crap leak into your bloodstream. And then you get this thing called inflammation, which is basically where your body's trying to deal with all this crap that you've given it. And so if your gut is fucked, which most people's guts are, then your brain is fucked. And so the thing that communicates this fuckedness is the vagus nerve. And so, if you've ever, when you eat a sandwich, or you eat you drink like a massive sugary drink, or you eat a burger or a pizza, and then you've got to go and sit in a dark room for an hour, or you have that post-lunch slump where you're just sort of tired and stuff. What that is that's your body being inflamed by what you're consuming. And so your vagus nerve communicates that from your gut to your brain, hey brain, look, mate, we're dealing with a bit of an emergency down here. I need you to just sort of shut off a little bit. All that energy that you consume that, I know that you're pretty good, brain. I know you consume 25% of the calories that we have, but I just need you to tell the body that we just kind of have to stop for an hour or two just so we can deal with this little emergency that we've got going on down here. So if you wouldn't mind just having the person, if you wouldn't mind having Charlie operate at 40 to 20% of his potential for the rest of the day, so we can deal with this absolute monstrosity that he's just given us, that'd be great. Cheers, brain. That's the email that your gut sends to your brain through the vagus nerve when you eat crap food. And the problem is most people just don't stop eating crap food. If you do this once every 2 weeks, 3 weeks, then it's fine because you don't really notice it as much. But if you're constantly eating crap, then your gut is just going to be totally ruined. And this is what had happened to me, is I wasn't eating crap per se, but I'd gone on this bulk before I moved to Dubai. This would have been 2 years ago now, whatever. And I did a dirty bulk. I just ate, I was eating pizzas, burgers, and I did it for a good month. Just constant shit, just trying to because I was kind of bored and I didn't have much work to do, so I just bulked. Bad mistake. And so after that, after this month of just consuming anything that my impulses granted me, thick shakes and burgers every day, I was eating 6,000 calories a day of just junk, right? After that, my body was right, mate, fuck off, as it rightfully should. And then I developed all these intolerances because my body just had to sort of deal with this. And so yeah, I got these tests done, and it turns out that I was intolerant to like 70% of the foods I was eating. And so what I did, like what most people do at this point, is then they look to add things. So I see this a lot with people who have like completely ruined like gut microbiomes, and like their entire gut's a mess, and they're all foggy and they're all anxious because their gut's ruined. And then what they do is like they're like, oh, I'm gonna take like some probiotics, and I'm gonna have some like bone broth, and that's gonna fix it. It's like that's like putting a band-aid on a broken leg. Like fixing this is not about adding things. It's not about taking supplements. It's about removing the thing that's causing the problem. Okay, and you know, if you've ever been sat there, you might have this where like you're just chilling, you're just sat there, like reading your emails or working, and then suddenly this massive like impending doom overcomes you, or like you have this massive wave of anxiety or this sudden thought that something terrible is going to happen. Like, you know, where like your mood's steady, and then like it's steady, and then suddenly it spikes up or it spikes down. Like, you know, you're really happy, and then like your mood swings down to being really sad. If you just have random waves of anxiety or depression coming over you, it's because of what you're eating. And so, you know, what you want to learn to do is, I'm not telling you to do carnivore. I'm not telling you what you should and shouldn't eat. I'm telling you to, like, first of all, don't eat any sugar. Don't eat any sweetener, because your body still thinks it's sugar and it triggers the same insulin response. Don't eat anything artificial. Don't eat any dairy. Don't eat any gluten. And don't eat anything processed. You know, and this, if you're wondering what this leaves us over with, it's single ingredients. Ooh. Single ingredient foods. So you don't have to go as extreme as only eating beef like I have. Cut everything out. Just do it. It's called an elimination diet. Like, just eat like sweet potatoes, rice, vegetables, meat, and then plants. And even then, like, I don't eat plants or any of the carbs. I just do beef, and it's changed my life in a way that I can't even possibly do justice in the short period of time I've got for this video. This is my life. It's just completely changed my, anyway, whatever the hell, right? So the diet thing's important. If your gut's ruined, then your brain will be ruined, and then your business will be ruined, and then your life will be ruined, and like chaos in, chaos out. If you're putting in this like chaotic substance into your brain, into your body, which is what sugar is, which is what like all these like just these like the junk food, like actually think about it. Like, we're not designed to eat that. Like, the body's evolved to consume these single ingredient raw foods, you know, like just like potatoes or like sweet potatoes or like fruit or whatever. And even that nowadays is all like engineered and stuff, but like at least like think about it for a second. Like, what's your body supposed to run off of? Like, it's kind of like, imagine that you it's giving your body junk food and expecting it to perform and run properly would be like taking a car that runs on petrol and giving it diesel. So you've got these two fuel sources, right, for cars, and petrol cars and petrol engines are built to process, ingest, and like consume petrol, and diesel engines are built to do that with diesel. But if you give diesel to a petrol car or petrol to a diesel car, then the car won't run and the car will just stop. It will just go, and then it will like the engine will just give way, and then you have to get someone to whole like process it and stuff. That's what you're doing when you eat crap food. That you're eating what is not biologically processable, and of course, you know, when you do that, you're running some problems. So the next thing is information. So when you have your goal and when you have what you want to achieve with your goal, you need to seek information that you can apply to help you accomplish this. But the problem is we either get, and I wrote this down on my phone here, which I can just refer to real quick because it will help you out. Yeah, okay. So we are either in a state of paralysis or starvation. So here's the thing. People have a habit of either paralyzing themselves with too much information or starving themselves with not enough. So when you're working and you're trying to become successful, whether you're building a company or trying to get fit and healthy or have a good relationship, we do things in two stages, okay? So stage 1 and stage 2. So stage 1, and these, by the way, they're split equally, but they shouldn't be equal. Stage 1 is the information gathering stage, So this is where you're seeking the information to find out what you should do. So if you want to get to 10K a month, then you need to find out what sort of business you want to start or what sort of skill set you need to acquire. You need to find out all these things. Stage 2 is doing. Okay? And so what we need to do is becoming successful is very straightforward. Find out what you need to know to become successful and then go and do it. And by doing, then we receive more information and this sort of feedback, and we get this feedback loop of success. But the problem that most people have is they jam themselves to either side of this equation. So and it's usually on this side that people get jammed. So either they try and get too much information and they spend their entire life on YouTube and in books, like trying to gather information, and they don't do anything, or they don't bother getting any information and they just do. Both of these are wrong. You need to learn to do both. You need to learn to become someone that can ruthlessly and precisely find the right information, consume it, digest it, and then act on it. But also someone that can, as soon as you know what you need to do and you have the information, suddenly you shut everything off. You don't watch another YouTube video, you don't read another book until you need to learn the next thing. And so this is either paralysis or starvation. And these are the two states of, the two deadly states of informative death, basically, where you either have too much information and you're paralyzed, analysis paralysis, right? You're paralyzed by the information, or you don't have enough information and you're just working and working and working. This is kind of the whole work smart, work hard thing. If you're just doing all the time, then you're not smart because you're not working on the right thing. But if you're just learning all the time, then you're not working anything. You're not doing anything. And so, this exists in a state of, there's two states that we can, think about here, where we have convergent, because how do you fix this, right? So we have something called convergence, and then we have something called divergence. So a convergent state or a convergent person is someone who likes to hone in on something. A divergent person is someone who likes to expand and look for options. And so if you're in a state of paralysis where you've got too much information and you're just constantly learning, then you need to learn, you're being divergent, okay? Where you're going out and you're seeking new things and you're trying to find new things and gather as much information. You're like a squirrel in the summer, like burying these nuts of information in case you need them for a rainy day. That's fine to a certain point, but eventually it will paralyze you. And so what you need to learn to do is converge, which is basically where, if this is the point, then you need to converge onto one thing. Or you need to learn to basically, in other words, just focus and find the thing that matters and converge your attention down onto and compress your attention onto this thing. Divergence is where you haven't got enough information and the problem is, you're starved of information. You don't know what you should do. So what you do instead is you start looking outwards, externally, for the information. And so your life and becoming successful is basically about gathering information and acting it out. But to do that, you need to exist in this cycle where, 1 minute you're divergent and you're looking for what to do and you're learning and you're learning and you're learning. But the second that you've learned what you need to learn or you found out what you need to do, then you converge on that one thing and do it. And then once it's done, then you need to diverge again to find out, what do I need to do next, and then converge. And you're going between this state of, what do I need? Found it, focus. What do I need? Found it, focus. And that's how you become successful. If you trap yourself on either side of these coins, your life will be a mess. Right now, the reason you're probably not successful is because you're either starved of the information you need or because you're paralyzed by too much information. Both are deadly, both are bad, but when you marry them together, it works. It's kind of like those marriages that somehow work when you take this godforsaken broken man and this godforsaken broken woman, and by some miracle, by putting them together, the sum of the parts is greater than the whole and they get along. Very rare, but it can happen, and that's a very terrible example to bring the point home. Number 9, bloated social life. So another thing, this kind of comes back in with the drama thing that I was talking about here, but there's a couple of sort of deadly success sins, that you don't want to do. For example, trying to please people. So a lot of people are what we know as people pleasers, where they don't want to upset anyone, they don't want to cause any rife, they don't want to stress anyone out. For example, if part of cleaning up your life is telling your friends you don't want to drink with them anymore, but you're a people pleaser, then you're not going to want to tell them because you want to please them and you don't want them to be upset with you. you need to be accepting of the fact that in order to clean up your life, part of the mess are the people around you. And it's as simple as that. Now, the other thing that's very important here is understanding that when it comes to friendships, less is more. And I think everyone sort of learns this because, in like high school and in college and stuff, like we collect friends and it's all about being as popular as you can. But as you become an adult, you actually kind of almost want less friends. Like, you value in the small internet, you value less connections than you do more connections. At least that's how I see it. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's how I see it. And so less is more. And so what you want to learn to do is, if you've got let's just say that you've got loads of friends, tons and tons and tons of friends, loads of people here, I'm sorry, but some of these people are just not going to be good for you. And some of them are just going to have to go. And I'm not telling you should hire a hitman and kill them, but you'll find that by cutting down your social circle and by removing the people that, let's be honest, you don't even want to be friends with them. You're just friends with them because you kind of always have been. And you don't even know why you're friends with them anymore. You just kind of are. But, this is delicate because there's friends of mine that I've had for nearly 10 years now that I still consider to be my closest friends from college, girls and guys alike. I've got a lot of them. But people that you are really close with and talk to every day, some people just have these massive bloated social circles. And then then suddenly their identity is all tied up with these people. And then they want to step away from the social circle to do their own thing, but the social circle ostracizes them and judges them. So they get brought back into the social circle. The whole point is this. I don't want you to engineer your social circle to remove people. That's not my point. My point is that you want to define a goal and what you want, start moving towards it, and by moving towards this, you're going to move away from certain people in your life. And you're going to have to be willing to accept that. And you can't please everyone. Now, the other danger is girls. Girls/partners. Actually, let's just put partners because I think we get some women watching this. Shout out to the girls watching this. So I used to have a habit, shamefully, of being a little bit of a bad boy. I don't say that with any level of pride, trust me. But I used to have this habit of trying to date multiple people and, be all Sigma red pill, I've got all these girls. It is such a waste of time and attention and energy. You want to talk to one person at a time. Because the problem is once you start talking to more than one person, God forbid 2 or 3 people or 4 people at once, I've been there. It just doesn't work. If you're talking to and I'm not talking about having multiple girlfriends, I'm just talking about people that you're dating or people that you're talking to before that relationship stage. When you're talking to multiple people, this is a full-time job. This is a whole thing because you've got to take them out and see them, and then you've got to talk to them and you've got to call them. And this is a whole thing. One real easy way to make sure that your life is a total mess is to spend all your time and energy on these frivolous, shallow relationships that mean nothing and are going nowhere. So the easiest thing that I found is just to stop doing it and just to have one thing. In the same way that, you only want to have one business and you only want to have one thing that you focus on, it's the same thing is true with your romantic life and your partners. And you don't want to be this person that maybe you do, but I tried it. I tried this sort of macho, Sigma, Tesla, I date, all I do is I go on new dates every week. I did it for a good year. And don't get me wrong, it can be fun, but it sucks. And then you end up in this state where you're this actually just is miserable and lonely. But more importantly than that, it costs so much, it's very taxing on your energy and your time. And then you get all this drama and just don't bother. So you want to look at your social circle and your social life and ask yourself, is this bloated? And by bloated, I basically mean, is it bigger than it needs to be? And the chances are on one of those two fronts, whether it's your friendship group or your romantic life, it probably is, and you probably want to stop doing that. So the next thing that might be interfering with you cleaning up this mess is your CNS. And this is your central nervous system. So your central nervous system is kind of what it says it is. It's basically your nervous system, right? So your nervous system is this structure in your body that basically is like your brainstem and your spine or your spinal cord. And it basically regulates and keeps an eye on stress, kind of, is a good way to put it. And so a lot of people, they have very fucked up central nervous systems, right? And there's a lot of things that contribute to this. And the idea of having a fucked up central nervous system is basically having a nervous system that is under too much pressure and strain. And so you want to imagine a nervous system in this kind of way where it's like, if you've got like, well, it's basically like you can put it under pressure and it will crack if you're not careful. And so if you ever feel like tired and lethargic and foggy, usually it can be because of what you're eating. But if you're sleeping right and you're eating right and you're still getting sort of like tired and anxious and foggy, it's because your central nervous system is being pushed way too far. And so there's a few things that contribute to this, like overtraining, loud music, overstimulation, etc. So every time that there's a stimulation in your environment, your central nervous system will register and process it. So imagine that your central nervous system is to a external stimulant what your gut is to food. And what that means is your central nervous system has to digest and process the stimulants from your environment. And so, for example, if you watch a YouTube short, right, and you scroll through that piece of content, your central nervous system is responsible for digesting that, breaking it down, pushing out the waste, and then resetting, right? And so here's the thing with your central nervous system. A lot of guys who want to become successful have this ball of conscientiousness inside of them. And not only does it seep into work and business, but it also seeps into the gym and training. And the problem is we have a conflict here because a lot of people overtrain. And so every time that you work out and you work out to failure with intensity, and I've done this before where I'm trying to push myself and punish myself, like who's going to carry the boats? Is this the power of my bloodline shit? Maybe you've seen that meme where you want to push yourself to failure and you want to almost punish yourself in the gym. The problem with that is whilst the sentiment of it might be productive, is you overtrain. And so when you push your body too far physically through the gym, through heavy weights or compound movements, your central nervous system basically gets completely fried. There's only so much training that your body can take before it will just shut down. And so I used to go through this sort of phase where I would just overtrain and then I wouldn't be able to go to the gym for a month. And then I'd be fresh and I'd overtrain again. And I went through this cycle of overtraining and not. The other problem is if you're overtraining, then you can't really focus and work because your central nervous system is just so screwed. So you need to learn that in the gym, you might have to just sacrifice some gains. And also you're not going to make many gains and be productive if every single set is pushed to complete failure. I know that I'm not a bodybuilding coach and I'm not trying to give you bodybuilding advice. I mean, far from it, right? I'm definitely not one of those. But I can tell you that as someone who's tried to, become Mr. Olympia whilst building a business, metaphorically speaking, right? Overtraining is very detrimental and it will make your life a complete mess because your central nervous system just can't deal with all of the pressure that you're putting under. Now, the other thing that really messes with your central nervous system are extreme stimulants, for example, loud music or drugs or alcohol. Loud music's a big one because a lot of people do this without paying any attention to it and they don't think it's bad. If you put headphones in and you listen to some really loud, hardcore music for an hour, it's extremely taxing on your CNS. Your central nervous system determines basically how stressed you are or how relaxed you are. And so the state of your stress levels or relaxation levels are, they come out of this machine basically. And so if you're delivering this central nervous system, if you're feeding it extreme stimuli, then it's going to be stressed. There's no other way that it can happen. If you scroll through TikTok and you doom scroll for 3 hours and you give it these extreme stimuli, then you're going to overstimulate it and it's going to register as stress. Stress is basically an emotional response to the processing of too much stimuli. And so a lot of people are drastically overstimulated where they're constantly scrolling, they're constantly listening, they're constantly even if they're just driving and listening to music, there's always if there's always stimulation coming into your senses, your CNS is just working overdrive. It's kind of like a computer. Once again, the example I gave you earlier, it's like a computer that you just never turn off. Like it will just break. Like it's just gonna destroy itself. And so the easiest way to reduce overstimulation is to reduce the amount of stimulation that exists. And so this helps to, listen to quieter or more relaxed music. Or my favorite thing is to read. So if I'm trying to relax and wind down, I'm not like scrolling through TikTok, I'm just like reading. And usually just with like some ambient calm music, or like just the sound of the air conditioning, and like it's dark. The same thing is true with like light. So I can give you a real-time example that you'll have experienced before with the central nervous system problem. When you walk into like a shop or like an office or like a dentist or like a doctor, and they have those really horrible like bright overhead LED lights, those white lights that you can get like supermarkets or grocery stores and stuff. And then you walk out of that room and you're like, what the hell? Like you're like wired, like you're actually sort of like stressed. Like that's your central nervous system trying to process, this thing. If you have lights in your home, you should use incandescent light bulbs, not LED light bulbs. LEDs are fine if you're using like the red tone, but if you're using like bright, like pink or white or blue LEDs, like they just completely fry your central nervous system. It's the same thing. Like I've got this light for YouTube videos, that this big light that projects on, and like I knew this was going to be a long recording. This is like a 2-hour video, so I've turned that light off. I know that it might make the viewing thing, because there's not as much light on the whiteboard, but this like professional grade lighting, like looking at that for like 2 hours, like it just fries your brain. So this is some real time shit that you can see from the CNS. Is try and stare into like some white LEDs for like 30 seconds, and then you're gonna be like, what the hell? You start bugging out and stuff like that. That's a sign that your CNS is like working overtime. And so, yeah, this kind of comes from everything. The same thing is true with your CNS if you, with the overtraining thing, the pain thing, like too much stress. So the ways that there's a few ways that I found to fix your central nervous system and basically help you relax. And I can share them with you now. So the first one is meditation. Now, earlier on I said I don't meditate. It was kind of a lie. I do actually meditate quite regularly, but in the terms of my macro routine, you don't need to worry about it, right? Meditation. So I'm talking like literally no sound, no music, just sitting there and just going, and then just focusing on your breath. Like pause the video right now and just take a deep breath. Go on, do it. Okay, so now that you've done that, you should just suddenly feel a little bit more relaxed. The central nervous system does not need much attention. Like 10 deep breaths can reset you for a good hour, So meditation is a wonderful way to fix your central nervous system, ground yourself, bring yourself back. The second thing is light cardio. So basically walking, right? The third thing, and I actually had my doctor send me this, so I can share this with you. Let me just find out what this is called. Yeah, here we go. Okay, so it's magnesium, and I've been taking this for a while, and it does work. Magnesium, but then it's like a specific type. Magnesium L-thronate. And you do that before bed. So this is like a supplement you can take, and I'm not a fan of supplements. This is the only supplement I take, with the exception of vitamin D if I'm not getting sunshine. This is literally the only supplement I take. But magnesium L-thronate, or just magnesium tablets in this form, they really help with your nervous system and your CNS. And I didn't really buy it, but then I started taking them, and like I found that my recovery was way faster, and like they really helped. The other thing that you can do is sauna, and then you've got cold exposure, cold plunge, and then massage. This is my sort of protocol for managing my central nervous system, because I can get real stressed. Like if I'm working on stuff and I've got deadlines and I'm managing a team of like 30 people and I've got ads to record and products to build and videos to make and people to manage and finances to do, and like it gets real stressful. Like your CNS can get really overloaded, even though I'm very good with like my light, my stimulation, like all these things. Like I don't know how most people focus. I don't know how most people live. Like I have this shit on lock. And even then I still get overwhelmed, and I don't know how most normal people function without this stuff. So meditation. Every day, a little bit of mindfulness, just focusing on your breath. It just recenters your mind. And basically what meditation is it's forced, it forces you to remove all stimulants for like 20 minutes. 10, 20 minutes a day is all you need. The other thing, and this is my extreme sort of thing, is nothing. And I'll explain that in a second. This is a huge one. I'll explain in a second. This is big. Second thing is light cardio. So one form of exercise that won't tax your nervous system is cardio. So I walk every day. After I finish work in the evening, I'll go for like a 30, 60 minute walk usually. This supplement is pretty helpful. Sauna. So once again, you're not saunering to the point where you're like dried out like a prune, but saunering. Cold plunge. So I'll do like a 15 to 20 minute cold plunge once a week, which is incredibly helpful for my CNS, and I'll sauna a couple of times a week as well. And then massage. I get this deep tissue sports massage for 90 minutes once a week. These are the things that I do on a weekly or daily or habitual basis to make sure that my central nervous system is being properly tended to, so that it's not interfering. Because if you don't take care of, like your CNS is kind of like a baby. Like if you don't take care of it, it's just going to scream and scream and scream and scream, and it's going to completely exhaust you, and then it's going to force you to basically not be able to do anything, and then you'll have to give all of your attention to it. And that's when you end up in bed for 3 days straight just watching YouTube because you can't even think straight because it's so fried. Now the seventh thing, which is awesome, which I've got into the habit of doing really for quite a long time, is nothing. So nothing is kind of what it says it is. This is where if I feel overstimulated, or like my brain is sort of working overtime and my CNS is working overtime, I will do nothing. And what this basically entails is sitting in a dark room and staring at a wall. Or taking like, not necessarily a nap, but just lying down and staring at the ceiling. And I will sometimes do this for like up to an hour. And basically what happens when you do this is amazing. It's like miraculous. Because when you do nothing, and when you just sit and you stare at a wall or you stare at a ceiling, and you just, like, your brain starts processing. And what this does is, because you're not receiving any new stimulants, you're not listening to music when doing nothing, you're not talking to people, you're not checking your phone, you're not eating, you're not listening to anything, you're not touching anything. Like, you block out all stimulation basically, right? And it's not like you're meditating and trying to focus on your breath. Like, you truly are doing nothing. You're just staring up at a wall. But then what happens when you do nothing is it gives your central nervous system the allocated time to process all of the stimulation. It's kind of like in the same way where, like, if you eat a massive meal, you will have to go and lie down and you can't move because your body just needs to process it, right? The same thing is true with the CNS. Like, you need to learn to be able to just sit and do nothing and decompress. And I like to do this whenever I can, whenever I get the opportunity. So if I'm in the taxi on the way to the gym, I'm just sat in the back doing nothing, just looking out the window. If I'm on a plane, a short haul flight, I'll do nothing. If I'm eating food, I'll try and do nothing. Like, it's a hack because it allows your CNS to just become like, you just process. You'll just sit there and then you'll just start thinking, and your brain will just start problem solving and thinking, and you'll feel your body start to relax. And then, like, after a period of an hour or two, you'll be bored enough to then want to go and start exploring new stimuli. Incredible strategy. It's as simple as that. You just don't do anything for like a certain period of time. Because often, to take two steps forward, you have to take a step backwards. And I found that to be, pretty damn useful. So number 11 is your digital life. So your digital life is pretty important because, you probably spend just as much, if not more time in digital reality than you do physical reality now. And that basically means, what is the digital reality? Well, it's basically experiencing sensory stimulation through a screen as opposed to a natural manifestation of nature, right? It's kind of a poetic way to put it, right? So you have your digital life, and this is basically your screens. right? So you have your phone, and then you have your laptop. And for all intents and purposes, that's a phone and that's a laptop, right? And so what you need to learn to do is optimize these things in the same way that you would optimize your existing environment. Because, you know, if you are a recovering alcoholic and you have a drinks cabinet in your house full of alcohol, then you're going to relapse. In the same way that if you're trying to get rid of pornography, but on your phone you've got your top 5 videos bookmarked, then you're going to relapse, right? So you need to learn to optimize your digital life in order to basically do this. So the first thing is, you know, to remove things. For example, on my laptop, in fact, what I'll do right now is I'll actually attach a screenshot of what my desktop looks like, so you can see, right? And I'll attach a screenshot. My laptop has nothing. Like it has Google Chrome, it has Slack, and that's pretty much it. There's nothing else I can do on my laptop except from do those 2 things, at least available to click, if that makes sense. The same thing is true with my actual physical phone that I've got here. So on my phone here, I've got settings, I've got Uber, I've got some banking apps, I've got the camera, I've got WhatsApp. Like there really ain't much to see on my phone. I don't have any social media, and more importantly, I don't have notifications on for anything. I've operated without notifications for 3 years. For WhatsApp, for iMessage, no one, like the only time that I can be disturbed is when I want to be disturbed, right? If someone wants to call me, they can. But on like Slack and stuff, like I have notifications, so if someone really needs to get hold of me, they can get hold of me, but the people that I care about, right? I don't sleep with my phone in my room, things like that. And so you want to optimize your digital life, like just delete the apps, delete social media, remove it. I know you're addicted to it and I know you think you need it, but trust me, you don't. It's terrible. It's like a cancer, it like feeds on your life. And you know, removing social media and deleting social media did wonders for my business and my life. It made me nearly $30 million. So if that's not worth doing it for, I don't know what is really. Yeah, the notifications thing. Like chances are you're watching this video and you've received notifications and it's distracted you from something that's actually trying to change your life. So, you know, just get rid of it. That's really all I've got to say on the digital life thing. It's nothing that we haven't kind of already covered. Yeah, so pretty much just get rid of it all. Like just make it real simple, keep it real clean, and you know that way you have more time and energy. So the final thing that we're going to talk about, the last sort of point in cleaning up your life, isn't something that is particularly obvious, and it's having 1 to 2 mentors max. So this kind of comes back into the theme that we talked about earlier of information overload and being too divergent with seeking information. But the thing is when you're learning how to become successful, the easiest way to do that is to find someone that has done what you want to do and pay very close attention to every word that they say, because you know they're going to give you information on how they've done it. This is how I became successful. And the real problem is you can be like what I would call over-mentored. And over-mentored is basically where you have too many mentors. You have too many people that you watch, you have too many people that you learn from, and what this does is it confuses you. Because here's the thing about success, is if this is success, if this star here, oh my goodness me, that looks like a deformed problem, but we won't get into that. Just say that this represents success as a star, right? There are many different paths that we can find to get to this success. There's lots of different ways to skin a cat. There's loads of different ways to do it. And so the problem with this is this could be mentor number 1, and this is how mentor number 1 did it. This could be how mentor number 2 did it, mentor number 3. This is how mentor number 4 got there, you know, 5 and 6. And so the problem with having more than 1 or 2 mentors is you get these conflicting messages where mentor number 1 says, I got to success this way, but mentor number 6 did it this way. And this could just be a financial outcome like Millionaire. There are probably tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of ways to become a millionaire, okay? And the last thing you want to do is learn 10 or 20 different paths, because then like you're never going to take the whole point is the one common denominator of all of these different paths and all these different people is they took one path. And that's the thing with having 1 or 2 mentors. So when you're looking at like what you want, you need to figure out who you want to learn from, because maybe right now you're watching like a whole bunch of different YouTubers. Maybe you've got like 5 or 6 people that you watch regularly and the content you watch regularly. And the problem with that is and I'm saying we because I'm one of those guys potentially for you, is we're going to give you conflicting advice and we're going to tell you different things. The truth is that neither of us are right or wrong. It's just that like there's different paths to take and you just want to follow one path. So I really have only ever had 2 mentors. The first mentor that I had was a guy called Alan, who was my boss for my apprenticeship when I was 19 years old. And my second mentor was Sam Ovens. In fact, all of this stuff, most of this stuff, I learned directly from Sam Ovens. So thank you, Sam. But I didn't listen to anybody else except from Sam once I started my business. And I'm at the point now where his teachings have got me to 8 figures, which is kind of where he got with his business, right? He got to like 20, 30 mil a year. And I'm at that point now where everything that I've learned from him has probably compounded another 6 months will get me to where he was. And so you want to find a mentor, and then the only time that you find a new mentor is when your achievements level or supersede that of the person that you've learned from. Otherwise, you're going to get all confused and lost. And certain mentors have lots of information available. Like if you want to make me or pick me, and I'm not saying that you should or shouldn't, if you want to make me your one or one of your 2 mentors, I've got like 300 videos on this channel. And I've documented my journey from starting a business all the way to $10 million a year. And I've made videos every single week about what I'm learning as I go through the way. So each mentor that you pick can have an incredibly like deep wealth of knowledge. But the important thing is you just pick 1 or 2. I like to just have one, but like this is the thing is like you can still read books and stuff, and you can still like engage in like conversations with other people. But like in terms of actual active mentorship with who you go to for a single source of truth, like a religion almost, you should pick carefully. And you don't want to have 6 mentors because they're all going to tell you different stuff and they're all right, but you know, because they're all on different paths, it gets confusing. So yeah, that's how to clean up your life. Go and do it. Bye.